Hello, hello. Hey, sweet people. Welcome to another episode of Inglês no Rádio. I am your host. My name is Foster. I'm an English teacher and officially a professional podcaster. After almost 5 years of doing this, I'm finally in a professional podcasting studio, which is really, really cool. It's a lot of fun. And today, Alexia was supposed to be recording with me, but unfortunately, she had to go to the vet with our dog. Nothing serious, but something came up, so you guys are stuck with me today. Anyways, recently on the podcast, we asked for your questions. So we asked for our listeners to submit audio questions. And the idea was that we could play your questions live on the podcast and try to give you our real, honest answers. And the idea was to do this with me and Alexia, but because she's not here today, I'm going to try to do it all by myself. So it could be a disaster. We'll see. I hope so. Anyway, here we go. The question of the day comes from our very own Felipe. So let's take a listen to his audio, and then I will try to give an intelligent answer. And just a heads up, I have not listened to this question yet, so please be patient. Okay, without further ado, Felipe's question.
Hey guys, how are you? It's Felipe here. So I have a question about learning English. I feel like nowadays it's easier to learn vocabulary and to practice listening because we have easy access to a lot of content. So we can watch Netflix, we can watch YouTube videos in English, we can read books in English, and there is little friction to get that content. But even though there are a lot of apps and platforms that I can practice speaking, or that I can talk to native people, I feel like there's still a lot of friction to keep that as a habit, because some of them are very expensive, or if I find like a language partner, sometimes life get in the way and then I don't have time, they don't have time. So I wanted to know if there is a way that it's kind of simple but still very effective for learning and practicing speaking pretty much every day. Thank you.
Okay. Wow. Thank you, Felipe. That was a beautiful question. A very good question, which I would expect nothing less from you. So just a little bit of inside information. Felipe works with me and Alexia. He is an integral, very important member of the Inglês no Cru team. And Felipe, you already know this, but your English is excellent. In terms of Brazilians that I know that are non-native English speakers, I have to admit that Felipe is one of the best. His level of English is really, really good. So when Felipe's asking a question, you should probably pay attention because it's probably going to be a good question. Okay, so let me think about your question for a moment, Felipe. Essentially, it sounded to me that you were asking about, okay, nowadays in the modern world in which we live, we have easy access to everything. So finding high quality material is not a problem. I believe what you said was there's little friction. And I believe you said, but sometimes life gets in the way. The correct way to say this is sometimes life gets in the way. So sometimes life gets in the way. That's a great phrase to know in English. Okay, so there's a little friction. We have essentially unlimited content, high quality content, but it's still really difficult to maintain good habits. It's still really difficult to study and learn new things. So, Felipe, speaking specifically to you, I know that you are someone who has already learned several different languages, so you know how to do this. You are also someone that has thought pretty extensively about habit formation and routines and things like that. So I think the key word that you mentioned here is friction. So how do we reduce the friction for what is really important in your specific language learning case? So there are two parts to this. First, you need to really decide what is important for you and for your English, for you personally, for your objectives and your goals. And a resource that I would definitely recommend to just kind of help you with the mindset of framing your goals and identifying what's important is a book called Ultra Learning by an author named Scott Young. So this guy, Scott Young, he does all of these crazy challenges, like he did the entire MIT curriculum that takes 4 years in computer science. He did that in 1 year, and he learned 4 languages in 1 year. He does all of this crazy stuff, and he documents it on the internet. And then he wrote a book called Ultra Learning, where he really talks about the practices and the fundamentals of accelerated learning. Like, how do you learn faster and more effectively? And something from that book that I thought was super interesting is the amount of importance that he puts on the planning stages. So if you are going to attempt to complete, or I don't know, like go on this big adventure of learning a new language, or even simply improving a new language, there are a lot of moving parts. So you really need to think deeply and for a long time about, why are you doing this? What is it that you really want to do? And once you have that kind of reflective, contemplative time to think, then you can start to identify, okay, how can I best use my time? So that's a long way of saying, don't just look on the internet and consume a lot of different information. Really think about your goals and how you can achieve them. And Felipe, because I know you personally, I imagine that your goals are to continue to improve your speaking, to be as close to as a native speaker as possible. And I think the easiest way to do that would be practicing conversation. Like you said, how can you, in an almost frictionless way, have conversations on a daily basis? So my first intuition would be to say, talk to yourself and record yourself. So when I was really studying Portuguese, this was one of the most valuable tools for me, is just speaking to myself in Portuguese, singing in Portuguese, and then actually recording it on my phone and then listening to that recording. So especially if you already have an advanced or intermediate level of language skills, this is a really, really awesome thing to do. And if you want to reduce the friction even more, I put the voice memos app, the little recording app on my phone, I put that on the home screen. So I really don't have to click anything, or I can just talk to my phone and say, hey, start recording. And then I can immediately start recording. So literally zero friction. And what do you record? You could record yourself talking about something. Like you could choose a theme and you could talk about it. For example, I know that you are working on developing different skills in different coding languages. You could imagine that you are explaining that to someone and record a 3 to 5 minute audio about that process and what you are learning. And then when you listen to that, I think you'll identify your mistakes. You'll gain a little bit of confidence. You'll have a more clear idea of what you need to practice. And all of that is totally free. You don't need anyone else. All you need is your voice, your mind, your imagination, and preferably a phone with a recording device. So that's a completely free way to do it. You also mentioned that apps can be expensive. Or if you have like a language exchange partner, that sometimes they do not really show up, or it can be difficult for the scheduling. What I have done in the past is if I'm going to invest in language learning, naturally I'm going to invest some time and money into conversation. So I will find a language tutor online, and normally I will purchase and schedule like 10 classes. So this is just an investment that I make, and then I cannot retract that investment. So it really forces me to do it. It's on my schedule. I know that every Thursday at 4:30 p.m., I'm going to have a language class, and I have to be there. So there's really no friction. And I think that is all the advice that I have for you today, Felipe. It's really difficult for me to give you advice because honestly, you are just a more intelligent learner and more of a polyglot than I am. But I really appreciate your question, and I hope that you guys enjoy this new format. Hopefully next time we will have Alexia joining us as well. As always, keep up the good fight. Lose well. See you soon.